Hey, YouTubers, welcome to Hope for Survival. And this evening, I have the honor of spending some time with my brother from another mother, Marine combat veteran, podcaster with approaching 5,000 shows under his belt from the city of brotherly love. And I've known, I got to meet Chris about 3 years or so ago, and it's been great. I listen to his show every morning, and I kind of at times I feel like I'm a resident of Philadelphia. And I wanted, Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Butch. Thanks for the introduction. I appreciate it.
You've earned it, man.
You changed my life, man. It's an interesting story. We lost power here. We moved down here a little closer to the city. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit. And we did a lot of camping outdoors stuff, and so we're just kind of naturally prepared as a byproduct of that. When we moved down here, everything's packed up. And by chance, the power goes out for a couple of days, and we're on a well. We have oil heat, which doesn't run without power,
Yeah.
and we were safe. There's a hotel around the corner, but it was just a local outage. But I'll tell you what, it was a wake up call, and your book has really helped us prepare. We're big fans
Thank
of
you.
Hope for Survival. We follow it personally, and it gives us peace of
Yes.
mind. It really does.
I'm glad to hear that. Um, and through your podcast, some of your followers are now Hope for Survival folks. Your brother, Marine brother from out in Colorado, messages with me, and I told him that we were trying to cross paths to get together again. And he's read both of the books, and it's truthfully it's a small world. It really is. And brothers from uniform from different eras of the past. It's kind of nice. Even though we're in different locations, it's nice to be linked, to share thoughts, share concerns. We have a commonality of we wore uniform, we took an oath, we love our country, and
Indeed,
we have concerns of what's happening in our country right now. And um, even with the concerns of our country, is we always stood up and defended the rights of everyone. So sometimes it's a struggle, but um, so in a lot of our conversations and emails, we've talking about preparedness and food, water, shelter. We need heat and general locations. Your threats can vary. When we kind of keep a commonality of A, B, C, D, E. These are going to be threats, but let's talk about your specific area. What do you have? Your threats in Florida are going to be different than your threats in North Dakota in December, right?
right. Big difference.
Uh, but when we start talking about the basis of security and vulnerabilities, okay, we're going to harden our house. We're gonna do A, B, C, D, E again, and so forth. But there's a trend that's happening. It's been there for a long time, but it is increasing in major cities. And listening to you in the mornings kind of led me more to, hey, I'm going to go look at this. I want to go on my own and go look at this. And I've gone on YouTube and I've researched news articles like down in Kensington.
Oh yeah.
And
I've been
um,
talking about it for years.
yeah, you're the one that rung my bell, and I wanted to talk to you because you're kind of suburbia, right? And now you've got you had it before, but you have this growing vulnerability looming near you.
Huge,
That
huge,
that we're not talking just a person. We're talking numerous, but it's multiple threats. You've got the psychiatric side. you've got the drug side, you got the criminal side. And I don't know about Philadelphia, it may be the case, but in many of these cities, law enforcement to a degree is trying to protect these people to help them get off the street. And if they go in and they bust them and they get a record, it may disqualify them from getting certain programs to get them off the street. Is that right?
Well, I'm not aware of that specific detail. It wouldn't surprise me. Let me give you a couple things that we are seeing here in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I frequently drive up what's called 309, Route 309, which is a major artery coming out of the city of Philadelphia. Now, this isn't major artery like 5-lane expressways in New York or
Mm-hmm.
Los Angeles, but it's a major artery coming out of Philadelphia. And I literally saw a car driving up the left lane with one headlight, and the car was on fire. I don't mean like a little smoke, like shooting planes. So,
Huh.
what's the point? Well, there's no enforcement. There's no traffic enforcement anywhere. I was actually struck, rear-ended by a driver, and she was impaired. Admitted she was impaired. Didn't get arrested. I spoke to a cop and friend, and he said, "Well, it's just it's difficult now. Everything is difficult now." The homeless problem, the number of homeless people. I was saying to you earlier, I call them the backpackers. Where all these people show up all of a sudden walking around with backpacks, strangers walking through communities, sitting on the curb. What's the big deal? It isn't a big deal, but it's an indication of something.
Yeah.
And being a veteran, certainly I'm a lot more cynical, especially as a combat veteran. So the average person sees somebody wearing a backpack sitting on the curb, and they see somebody, whatever. I see a threat.
Yeah.
I see a terrorist, right?
Yeah.
Um, and what is the instance of that? Well, certainly not everybody walking around wearing a backpack is a terrorist. That's a fact. Okay, at least not right now. But there is a threat there,
Yeah.
and I had a situation. I was on the sidewalk having a conversation the other day. Somebody, looking kind of shady, and I think that if it weren't for my size and the fact that I'm always prepared to protect myself, um, I could just tell there was some trouble lurking there. So, what's the real world impact? Break ins, robberies, people are afraid to leave their kids at the bus stop.
Yeah.
A lot of this is driven by horrible politics and piss poor policies. But I think, frankly, that the government is just preparing for the fact that there's going to be a running out of money real soon.
I agree.
And providing these services isn't going to be an option anymore.
And maybe your city may be the same or your township may be the same, but I know in a lot of locations now, uh, police departments are undermanned. They're having trouble hiring. And in a lot of cases for basic domestic type rear endings, someone standing on my porch beating on my door, they're not going to respond to these calls, you know.
No, there's already a falling off of that. People don't even realize it.
Yeah. So, so my thoughts are this. Okay, on a good day, 15 minutes from the average officer getting to my house, right? And in 15 minutes, the person that was beating on my door has now tried to bust through a window, bust through a door, and they've entered into maybe, let's say, tier one of your house. And let's say you have a good security plan in your house and you're going to retract your family back into a safe area. In 15 minutes' time, uh, an individual or individuals can do a lot of damage to a family that's not prepared, right? Uh, you know, I know from talking to you over the years and here as well, there is a mindset and there is a plan for this type of event. But the average home, uh, when you call out and they say, is someone not breathing or has someone been shot? And you say no, but someone's beating on my door to unwanted. And they're like, well, call us back when the door falls, right?
Hmm. Right.
And this is I hate to say it in America, but this is happening more and more and more.
Well, you could back up real big step there. That there's a huge problem with 911 operators, and you can't imagine the trouble. The day I got rear-ended, the 911 call taker said to me, well, what township are you in? I knew I was in one of two, but I didn't know exactly which
Yeah,
one. I'm like, aren't you supposed to know that? I'm telling you the cross street where I am. So you got a problem just even getting through on that. On the security end, you know, our big thing with that is, I figure if you get into my house, if somebody were to get into my house, they got a big problem
yeah,
because I got weapons everywhere. And believe me, I'm just gonna kill the person. There's not gonna be any. Remember the Paul Pelosi thing? He's like having a conversation with the guy and cocktails and stuff.
yeah.
I would handle it a little differently personally. You see what I'm saying? But if
Yeah,
all else
I'm
fails,
with you.
I'm like, I don't know. The guy started choking. I gave him an emergency tracheotomy. I don't know what happened. I did the
Yeah,
best I could to save him. And sometimes I leave the door open just for fun, but nobody comes. You know what I mean? But but
yeah,
for the average person, Butch, you're right, man. If somebody's in your house, you got a problem. And that's why I preach, man. You want to make sure that that does not happen undetected. We have, and I got this from you, man. Really, I guess you could say 5 layers of security. I mean, if it's coming down to me stabbing an intruder in the eye, they had to get past a
yeah,
lot to get to that point, you
yeah.
know?
Because the whole thing is other than a choice of weapons to imply deadly force. Um, Most steps of hardening trinkets to make sounds and all that, um, it's not to keep the burglar or the bad person out. It is to let you know they are there.
Yes.
And as soon as they cross your property line and you start getting these ding dongs as they're approaching you, that is warning you and giving you time to then um, engage your plan. No matter what your plan may be. Uh,
It's giving you time to put around in the chamber, Butch. Let's
my
not beat around the bush
my,
here.
my goodness, have a plan. I mean, even in the world today, I hear folks saying, well, nothing's ever happened to me bad. And I'm like, well, I bet if I find 20 people who all died from gunshot wounds in the streets of America, they would all tell you they didn't have a plan either, or they wish they had a second chance to have a plan. And that's kind of the whole point. Uh,
Indeed. Yeah,
all we can do is educate, and then it's up to you as an individual to be smart
no doubt.
enough to take these steps. Um, and um, especially I mean, they're everywhere, but in the larger cities, like where you're at, and I watch these videos or you see them on the news or wherever, and you see these masses of individuals. I mean, they're not even in homeless camps. That's a whole nother story. The homeless camps, but these individuals that are just laying on the street, they're using the bathroom on the street,
But you
and
look at what's going on in Kensington, and
it's
I'll give
crazy,
you
man.
the perfect example of how failed our systems have become. Okay, you've got people. This isn't me saying this. I've been talking about it for years. By some morbid fascination, I stumbled across this YouTube channel that has Kensington.
Yeah,
And my grandparents lived in Germantown, which is only a couple miles away. As it turns out, right now, even though we're not in the city of Philadelphia within the city limits, we're only about 6 miles from Kensington. It's reported to be the largest open air drug market in the world. You go down there and people are shooting up and doing all these things, and you say, well, who cares? Okay, it's their business, right? They want to get down there and they want to do whatever they want to self inflict on themselves, so be it. But the fact of the matter is, that's not the end of it. For one thing, the environmental impact. I mean, you get it's
Yeah.
just it's filthy, dirty trash on top of trash. The disease element and the potential for some kind of an outbreak that could spread is huge. You have people that are so thoroughly incapacitated by the drug use that they're getting beat up constantly. I mean, this is happening on a regular basis. Sexual assaults, physical assaults, robberies, the properties down there. You can't have a property down there and raise a decent family in this environment. It doesn't exist. And to your point, and there's just blocks and blocks and blocks of this. But just to point out how far gone our systems are. You look at this imagery and you see this vast human wasteland.
Yeah.
People that are homeless, mentally ill, can't, barely take care of themselves, drug addicted, working in some kind of a sex occupation, I guess you'd say. I don't know
Yeah.
what you call that. Some of the names kind of crack me up. But you know what you'll see on every street corner? You'll see a perfectly handicap accessible corner ramp, newly constructed, to make sure that there's wheelchair access. People can't feed themselves, they can't take care of themselves, they're killing each other. And the priority is making sure that wheelchairs can get through on the city corners. And it's just amazing. And to think that somehow these problems are going to get solved by government, I think, is really wishful thinking. We got a real problem on our hands,
Yeah.
and it's beyond out of control.
What would you say is the attitude behind closed doors within high city government? Not in front of the camera, but
I think it's one of not in my backyard. You go to Kensington is 6 miles away, and it's a human wasteland. You go to Chestnut Hill, which is 3 miles away, and it's very upscale and very nice. I think where I live is very nice. And we're not really we don't see the direct impact of Kensington. Maybe a couple of the backpackers I mentioned, but where we live, it's kind of spread out, and we have hills, so we don't get a lot of. It's only the fittest of the of the homeless or whatever that make it through here. So we don't really see it. You see it on YouTube, and I think for most people, as long as it's not my backyard, I'm not sure they really care. But in the meantime, it's destroying these local communities. And I think to your point, it's only a matter of time before there's a disruption in the free food or something like that that
yep.
causes these people to push out. Happening now, so
Yeah.
only going to
And
grow.
that is that whole when you do that whole risk assessment thing and you look at vulnerabilities A to Z, okay, my grid, I have one is none, two is one, and three is better, check. And you go through this whole checklist and you get down to, okay, X miles away, I have hundreds, if not thousands, of homeless people with issues,
Yep.
right? How do I one is none, two is one, and three is better? Other than, okay, I live in a fortress and so on and so forth. Um, but like you said in the beginning, with the mask comes a lot of problems. You got environmental problems, you got health problems, you got to when the drugs stop moving, whether they're prescription drugs, street drugs, they're going to be moving to wherever they can try to find them. And if they don't have the means to buy them, they're going to be looking for people to rob from. Um,
It's a great point. I
As
never
a
thought of that,
culture, as a culture and communities, like you said, it's out of sight, out of mind. It's not my problem. It's not my problem.
Yeah,
It's let the city deal with it. Look at
yeah,
Chicago. I've been saying it for
yeah.
years. You watch A, B, C, and D, and they're screaming this against police officers, and you have people racial division, and I just my thought is, you know what? Take your solutions and go to Chicago and fix Chicago, and then come back and talk to us. You have young children whose parents are either dead, they've been murdered, or they're in jail, and you got grandparents raising these young children, and you know what? Skin color doesn't matter. They all bleed red,
Let me
and
tell
no
you, Butch,
one
that's another whole epidemic in itself. The number of grandchildren raising their or grandparents raising their grandkids. Let me tell you something, by the
everywhere,
way.
man, everywhere. It's terrible.
This the solution to this problem of inner city drugs and violence. It's very simple, and it's been done over and over again. You don't need a political science degree. You don't need a public safety degree. Uh, and it's three basic components. Okay. Number one, you need good services because these people are genuinely in trouble at this point.
Yeah,
Whether you agree with how they got there, their
yeah,
role in it, it's a problem at this point. They need medical help, real medical help. As you know, you can't even just dump this stuff. Stop taking it without a real problem. So you need services, mental health. I've often said if you actually go down and talk to addicts, they're all mentally ill. The only question is, were they mentally ill before the drugs or mentally ill after the drugs? And I've never been able to answer that question
yeah.
fully,
Sure.
but they're very much related. So you need services. You need effective policing. And by services, by the way, I mean homeless shelters. Here's another fascinating thing for you. Our county closed the homeless shelter. We're building dog parks. Talk about priorities. You're really helping to promote the problem by pushing these people on the street. And I'll tell you why. Because to be able to go to the homeless shelter, so you used to be the cops wouldn't let you sleep in the park. They caught you sleeping in the park, they're probably going to hit you with the nightclub, put you in cuffs, and then if you're lucky, they're going to take you down to the homeless shelter. But you go down to the homeless shelter, and guess what you have down there? Rules.
Yeah,
Rules. You can't just
yeah.
shoot up in the you can't even smoke in the homeless shelter. They have to have these rules, and anybody who's dealt with homeless people in this type of environment will explain to you why you need these strict rules in
Sure.
place, because you'll have complete anarchy. Okay, so by nature of the fact that the police forced people into the homeless shelters, and the homeless shelters force people to at least somewhat live by a set of rules, you contain things quite a bit. Well, we don't do that anymore. We're building new $300,000 dog parks and beautiful handicap corner ramps. Oh, the handicap must be very proud of what we're doing here for them all over the place. It's just incredible the investment we've made. But we don't have any money to help homeless people. That's not possible, and it really is. It's destroying communities. The basic role of government is to provide for security, and our
Yeah,
government cannot do it.
yeah,
And you're right, Butch. 15 minutes is an eternity when you're trying to wait for the police. And another point I'd like to make: if you're whatever choice of defense you have, and I'll say, some people don't like guns, and
yeah.
I was born and raised literally around guns. Had my first gun in my hand at 10 years old. Had my own gun at 12 years old. It was what I grew up in, but not everybody did. Okay. And if you didn't and you're not comfortable around them, well, there are other choices of self defense and security and weapons. And I would actually say that guns aren't for everybody.
Yeah,
And I'll give
I,
you a case
I
in
agree.
point, Butch. I'm a Marine combat veteran. I really don't like handguns. I just was never really comfortable with them. I would much rather grab my rifle. And to some people, that's really strange, but it's just a comfort thing for me and that sense of confidence. But anyway, if you're going to choose to, protect yourself with any form of, lethal protection like that, you got to know how to deal with the aftermath as
Yeah,
well, especially if you're going to use a gun. So you better know the laws in your state. I was listening to a guy
absolutely.
talk. This kind of goes back to our point about, calling somebody knocking on the door. This question was a little different. If somebody's knocking on your door at 3 o'clock in the morning, do you answer the door armed or unarmed? And the answer is you don't answer the door. And you know what happens, Butch? This is how foolish people can be. Every year, people around the country go answer the door in the middle of the night, and guess who it was? Law enforcement to come tell them about one of their kids. And they stood there with the gun in their hand, and guess what happened? They got shot.
Yeah,
So, you
yeah.
know, and so anyway, there's lots of ways to protect yourself. Know how to deal with it, I guess I would say. So,
I have a phone number stored in my phone. Um, our local sheriff has been here to our neighborhood for 2 meetings and met with our neighborhood watch team, which is our security team in the neighborhood. He met with us and we explained what we were doing, and he met with us to have us brief him on our mission statement. But I have his name and number stored in my phone. If I have anyone, whether they're from outside the county or someone I don't know that's at my door, I'm calling my sheriff. This is why we have him, right?
yeah.
And great guy, but when there's unwanted, and we don't live in city limits. We live just outside of city limits. When there's unwanted, that's his job. Him or one of his deputies. And fortunately, we can use our radios here in our neighborhood, and we have a security team that's one of us. It's not like a paid armed security team like that, but it's just we put together and we've trained individuals medically, security wise, and so forth. We know who our neighbors are to help each other, whether it's security issue, a medical issue, whatever. If we have strangers driving through the neighborhood, we can reach out through a text group, a signal group, a radio group, and say, "Hey, there's a X vehicle headed towards your street, and they're not from our community. You might want to keep an eye on them when they're down that way." But um, everyone can't do that. There's people that still have to go to work. They're away the whole day. Uh, you drive home and you see a stranger with a backpack sitting in the location where you found the individual. Where if my wife or your wife was driving in the same situation, how they see that individual with the backpack is possibly a totally different mindset
Oh, yeah.
than how, are you lost? Do you need a ride? And so on and so forth. Where, when I see that backpack, anything you're carrying and I can't see in it, there's a threat inside of it that could hurt me or my family.
No doubt. By the way, my wife would never do that, what you
Good.
described.
I'm
Matter of
glad.
fact, here's the story, by the way. The guy had knocked on the door. I
Wow.
drove in and I saw him sitting out front down at the very edge of our property. And I actually started to go out there. And I thought, he's not bothering anybody. I didn't have any protection. I went inside and my wife said, "Did you see that guy?" And I said, "No, why?" And she said, "He was knocking at the door." Well, then I got some protection
Yeah.
and I walked out and questioned him. And it turns out, this guy was going around on a Segway. So he was kind of mobile, right?
Yeah.
My old jarhead butt isn't going to chase him down, not very far anyway. I might be good for like 20, 30 yards these days, Butch, but I wouldn't even try to go much further. So he's
Oh
on a
man.
Segway. He's got this backpack and this iPad collecting data. How do I know what data he's collecting? How do I know he's not collecting what Wi-Fi I have so he can jam it?
I was getting ready to ask you, maybe he's standing on your porch getting your IP address to see if it's locked down or not.
Well, it is. Um, and we knew he was there. But yeah, you don't know what they're doing, you know. So yeah, we're pretty guarded here, man. Like I said,
Well, I
we've
mean,
talked to him.
kind of thinking outside the box, especially in the world we live today, and you near a very large city. Uh, Maybe someone doesn't like you, right?
Right.
And one of the easiest ways to get you out of my way without you even knowing who hit you is through that IP address if it's not locked down.
Well,
Because it's very easy for me to this happens often. Pedophiles driving up and down streets looking for unlocked internet and connecting in, and they're going to these porn sites and pedophilia sites of children, and through your IP address, they are downloading numerous amounts of videos. Now, sure, they can check your computer, and it's like, it wasn't him, but it's the hassle and the harassment of you know, uh, it's we just in the last 30 days even locked ours down even more. I was exposed to some more of the coming VR and AI security apparatuses that's already in existence, and it's like, hey man, I'm locking my stuff down. I have nothing to hide. I'm not doing anything wrong, but Chris, for years now, it's not security is ahead of the threatened bad guys. Security and measures are trying to catch up to the existing threats that are out there.
what do you mean you have nothing to hide? When people say that, I always find it kind of funny.
I have
Would you
I'm not doing
would you
anything
let me?
wrong or
I know you're
illegal.
not, and you know me. But if I said, "Hey, let me see your wallet. I just want to look through and see what you have," would you let me look through it?
My wallet?
Yeah.
Here you go.
I'll knock it off.
I
You know what I'm
trust you.
talking about.
I mean, but I trust you.
All right. Would you let the guy driving down the street?
I might give him my
But he just
dummy wallet, but no.
I don't know why people think it's I say this even people they do the silliest thing on social media, right? Where they're at, when they're there, all kinds of silly things.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Or
I don't get it. People,
They post photographs of their family at the beach, where A, you're telling everyone there's no one at your house, and B, even like I'll use this as an example. People who may have a pool in their backyard and they post pictures of their kids around the pool. Um, it is not very difficult to take that photograph as a total stranger and determine exactly where that picture's at.
yeah, I know.
And now some jackwagon out there has your address and knows there's one, two, three, four, five little children. Um,
Yeah,
and again,
you
Chris,
won't.
we're back to the whole conversation we had earlier, and that is nothing has ever happened to me. You're just overreacting.
Well,
I've spent 40 years in this business, and um, I'll take being proactive any day over um, being reactive to something that has happened. You know,
let me tell you. Let me
can't
tell you
get your
two.
kids
Nothing.
back.
Let me tell you two. Nothing has ever happened to me. Stories. So the first one, I'll tell a little combat story. Okay. So when I was in training back in the when I was going through boot camp and training, we had Kevlar helmets and flak jackets,
Yeah.
and the shape of the helmets was like a World War II era helmet still. And these things were heavy, right, and
Oh
pretty
yeah.
darn uncomfortable, especially when it was hot. And we used to joke in training, like, I don't know why they make us wear this crap because the bullets start flying. The first thing I'm going to do is chuck this stuff, right? Well, let me tell you, that didn't happen. And I remember we were doing these fire missions running up along the coast of the Persian Gulf up to the border of Iraq, and we were firing these harassment and interdiction missions, right? And I remember we did this a few times, and we drove up. We called it the Pacific Coast Highway. I don't know what the real name of it was, but I was like, I can't believe the Iraqis haven't thought to blow up this highway. Like, we keep coming up here and lighting them up. You think maybe they'd blow up the highway, right?
Yeah.
Well, Butch, the next night we're driving up this highway, and I suppose maybe the Iraqis heard me, and they start lighting up this highway, man. And the rounds are coming in so close, right? I don't know if you've ever been on the receiving end of artillery. Let me tell you, it is not a fun experience. Anyway, I'm driving this truck. I don't have my helmet on, the helmet that I promised I was going to throw it away first thing. Luckily, I didn't do that. Well, I go to grab this thing and it's stuck under the seat of my truck while I'm trying to drive. I frantically grab this helmet and cinch that thing down as tight as I can. So, it's a little too late once you're getting to that point. But here's a little better, little more recent, I should say. Nothing ever happens to me story. So I don't know, Butch. It might have been one. I don't know if it was the last time I spoke to you, but it was one of the last times I spoke to you, and you were preaching to me in that
Me?
drony yes, you
Me
were
preach
rah,
to you?
rah, rah. And you were telling me that I needed to have a bag with me, and I was
Yeah.
like, Butch, I get it, I'm not carrying the damn bag.
I'm a
Well,
Marine.
I
I don't
do
need a
have a
bag.
bag. I changed my mind. And what happened, we're down here in southeastern Pennsylvania, right outside of
Yeah.
Philadelphia. And we're not in Tornado Alley here, but it does happen. And we got one. We got hit, and I wasn't home. I was about 10 miles away, a little further. It hit. We got caught off guard. Butch, I could barely get home that night. Through the grace of God and the truck I had, knowing where I was going, I had hypothermia setting in because I had gotten out in the rain. Didn't have my gear on, didn't have anything with me, wasn't prepared to get lost 10 miles from my house.
Yeah.
I know every road around here like the back of my hand. And with all the lights down and the trees down and the power down, which it was so disorienting, I can't
Yeah.
tell you.
Especially at night.
I can, especially at night. I could tell you horror story after horror story. One of the things about I'm trying to drive. Luckily, I grabbed this F-250 Super Duty that I have, 4-wheel drive, and I needed that truck that night.
Mm-hmm.
It's got big heavy bumper, and I was like bumping off of everything that night. But there were people walking around, and I remember it was angering. I'm like, who walks around in this kind? You have nothing better to do? Which it didn't dawn on me. They're walking home, man.
Yeah.
And Butch, people were in a fog. It was like the land of the walking dead. It really was. So anyway, we get home and tell you how bad it was. Now we were on the edge, our house, on the edge of the tornado. Okay. And uh, we had a lot of down limbs, but no damage to our property, thankfully. We had 3 trees in the back that I took down, and my neighbors gave me a lot of crap about it. And guess what? I'm really glad I took the trees down. My neighbor on the outer edge from me, so we were still within the path. A tree went down and it hit the vents. Him and his wife were in the basement. So was my wife. I wasn't home. Tree went down. You know the vent stack, the sewer vent stack that
Yeah.
goes through the roof? The tree hit that and literally knocked the whole sewer system down through the house. Talk about a crappy situation.
Wow.
Well, anybody, the roads were closed for days. Thanks to your preparedness, we had a generator, plenty of food, solar lighting. We were out grilling. We had a fantastic salmon dinner that night. I felt bad for everybody else, but
I'm
we
sure
were
you
just
did.
fine. We were having a good old time, actually. But I carried the bag today, to your point about, and then, here's the funny thing too, Butch. Tornado comes through here and everybody's, oh, climate change. That never happens. There's a website that keeps the history of tornadoes. And lo and behold, it's been about 50 years now because we don't get a whole lot of them over here. But all the way on the other edge of town, there was a tornado that ripped through there. So, yeah, it happens. And people don't, think, oh, it'll never happen to me. But when it hits, it's too late.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
have no options at that point.
So,
You're done.
um, so from where you from your seat on that night, it was after dark. You were lost, right? You're trying to work your way back home. Your wife and daughter are home alone, and you were seeing people moving about like zombies. Because when panic hits the brain, it's a whole new human. But
Yep.
did you kind of, for you personally, even though you were in control, did you feel any degree of panic setting in at
Oh,
all?
yeah. Oh,
It,
yeah.
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 See,
Now,
happens, man.
just to be clear, how stressful it is. I've driven in a combat environment.
Yeah.
I've gone through a lot of combat. That was my job, driving, and I had combat driving training. I've driven in combat, and it was incredibly stressful. When I got off the exit of, first of all, I didn't know what was going on. I had no idea there was a tornado. None.
Wow.
That was
Wow.
the cell phone tower down here blew down. Um, and I had no knowledge of what was really going on. I had an idea, but I really didn't know. I didn't know where. So I got off the highway, and luckily I was able to get off because that was all backed up. The highway got blown closed. I was lucky coming through timing wise that I did. I was 2 miles from my house, and the traffic was so backed up, I couldn't get in. Was I panicking? Yes. I couldn't get a hold of my family. I didn't know what was going on. I was getting cold. I knew I was getting hypothermia.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever gotten cold like that, but you start to lock up. And I'm thinking the panic that I was feeling, I was like, if I got to walk the rest of the way in, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what I was trying to gauge at that point. I was this close to dumping the truck like everybody else and just walking in. Because I'm thinking, I know I can walk the 2 miles. I don't know if I can drive it tonight.
Yeah.
But yeah, you panic and the stress. And then here's the other thing, Butch. I know these people. I'm driving by these houses. And let me tell you something. If people don't think that there's going to be an emotional toll of all that, you're really mistaken. You're fooling yourself. It was very difficult for me to just drive by and not be able to stop and offer any help. I had nothing to offer. I needed to protect myself first in that instance.
Or
But emotionally,
they're in the cold and wet. You're in a sheltered vehicle, right?
yeah,
And you can't help them. But when you're driving slowly and one or two of them are laying in the street, an emergency, and you stop to help them, and oh, they set you up and they try to take your vehicle. Now you have another problem. Uh, you've always,
well,
you
you
know,
got the wrong you got the wrong guy in that scenario because
yeah.
it's not likely I'd be the one stopping.
Um,
Um, and also, a big part of my preparation, and for a lot of reasons. I mean, you hear me talk. I like to be physical. I mean, I'm fat and out of shape like the rest of everybody my age, but I like to talk tough. So just play along, right?
welcome to America.
I like to be outside moving around, as you know. I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
hiking. I like lifting weights. I like doing physical things. I like splitting wood. Some people find this funny, but I do. I enjoy that stuff. And I like to stay in shape for it. But I have to tell you, at this age, with an 8-year-old daughter, I say it freely. For me, staying physically prepared is one of the most important things I need to be doing right now.
Yeah.
Because I don't care what the hell you have in the pack. If you're 15 miles out and you got to walk in, you got to walk in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the being physically fit part also is a great feeder to your mindset. If your body is
Yes.
healthy, you're going to think you are personally going to think more positive, and things are hopefully going to be more mentally clear at the start, right?
Yes.
And then when you
Yep.
start having stressors, that's when Um, I've witnessed a lot of in my past. I've witnessed a lot of he-men, great guys, super guys, smart as a whip. But when that adrenaline kicked in and there was some type of event, they melted. They
Oh yeah,
melted,
sure.
and it's oftentimes grandmothers, mothers, caretaker types, individuals that have been in combat, individuals that have lived through natural disasters, losing a home when they're there, and all that. Can step up, and this isn't a slap on anyone. This is simply how the brain works, right? And how the brain with your body, how it's going to work. So doing all you can now to be physically fit to train. You want to train how you think you will play, right?
Yes, that's
And
right.
and now you're talking. So so you drove home during this natural disaster, and you're seeing all this take place, right? You're seeing normal people who are now like zombies. Now add this, because one of my personal biggest fears, not for me or my family, but for our citizens, is if things start, is when things tank, is that authorities start using food as a weapon,
Mm,
and hunger and starvation start setting in, and then witnessing how how fast the human body is going to break down, and you're going to see people acting like animals. So you
yeah.
witness them walking like zombies because of the tornado and all that. Um, Wait until they can't get their drugs, whether they're prescribed or not. They don't have any food, right? Um, it's gonna be it's gonna be a sad day in our country. A sad
Well,
period.
it's a good word you bring up. And part of my shtick this year, if you will, I just as I was evaluating everything going on, I'm like, I can't do anything to change this, but all I can do is prepare. And to
Yes.
that end, I'm going to stay as positive as I
Yep.
can. And to that end, fasting is another thing that I practice.
Yeah.
It's good for you. And I think to be prepared right now, most people, I think the point you're trying to make, they can't go 2 meals. You get the third meal out, and you're going to start to see people get a little unruly, right? People can't handle it. And to your point, I don't want to be in the position that, I can be the guy at the head of the crowd that, I haven't eaten in 2 days and I feel great because I've
Yeah.
been there before.
Yeah.
And even the whole mental toughness thing, coming from the military, I remember one of the first. I was actually in Motor T School, Camp Johnson, North Carolina, Camp Lejeune there, and they had us doing a triage exercise, and they brought up makeup artists, and they had people disfigured, and we knew it was makeup, and it was a bit cartoony, but kind of lifelike. What was the point of all that? Well, to mentally prepare you to rely on that training that you're going to say, hey, this is bad, but I can't afford to get caught up in how bad it is. I got to keep moving forward
Yeah.
here. That to me, I think, and it kind of goes to, you're talking about community planning. We kind of played a little more Lone Ranger in that regard. And it's kind of part of it. I just don't have any confidence that the people around me are prepared to be as ruthless and as Darwinistic as I am.
Yeah.
you know,
Um, but the thing is, like right now, even if 500 yards out, if you know right now for 500 yards out, you have zero support in your mindset when things do tank, you already know that, versus
right.
finding it out when it's going to matter the most. You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah. We're prepared for it.
Yeah, that's and I agree with you too. Um, Faith is a huge part, and part of that faith is ever since you can't say the word, ever since the c word started a couple years ago, and all through the was it 2020 election and everything that happened in January 6th and all that. Chris, I've been at peace. I've been so at peace, and it's because all through this process, I just when it starts to say, this is a little this is becoming a weight around my feet. I just unleash it, man, and look up. It's you know what because um, like back in the beginning of Hope for Survival on our Thursday night Zoom right after the whole C thing started, we had you was actually our very first guest that we had talking about leadership.
Oh
And
yeah, that was a great time.
and you know, even now, 3.5 years later, ever how long it's been, people have food, they have water, they have all this stuff in boxes in their garages. They may or may not know how to use it. One of the biggest weaknesses I find is leadership.
Oh yeah,
And if you
huge.
if you wait if you continually move forward with weights around your ankles and you have no ability to be the one, hey, it's not as bad as you think it is, or you know what, we didn't plan on this, but this is how we're going to move forward. This is how we're going to overcome it. You know what? It's going to be all right. We just got to do A, B, C, D. We got to stick together. Being able to put on your personal armor, shield it off, and be a leader because, you know, um, I won't say all, but most of the folks who served in uniform at some point or another, you got put in a leadership capacity. It might have
Indeed.
been cleaning the latrine. I don't know, but at least you
Right.
were somewhat leading, right?
Yeah.
A lot of civilians they've never had to do that.
No.
So assuming it's like, man, what's wrong? What's wrong with you all? Why won't someone step up? If you can't lead your family, how the heck are you going to lead your neighborhood, right?
We're in such a pathetic state for leadership from top to bottom in this country. The role models are horrible, right?
Yeah, it's like
And I think,
who's
and
your
I'll
role
tell you
model?
I'll
What?
tell you the biblical part of it, in my opinion, Butch, and that is, I think, to be a good leader, an effective leader, you have to genuinely care about the people that you're serving, right? That's how good leaders talk.
Yeah,
Good leaders don't talk about, let me show you my portfolio or the size of my holdings or the number of this or
yeah.
it's not how they talk. Talk about how well they're serving the people that they lead.
It is
And
about serving.
it is. And it starts with genuinely caring, which is a conscience, which is from God.
Yep,
And and it's lost. And we shouldn't be too surprised because it's harder and harder to find a church. It's harder and harder to find people that go. And I'm not pointing fingers. I certainly haven't lived a holier than thou life myself. But there's a lot of things that we have laid to waste that are important to the foundation of not only who we are, but what we are and our ability to sustain that going forward. And it is a sad state of affairs, but I agree with you. God is at work in all this, and we have to let that work. The spiritual journey for me through all this is a little bit different. And that is that I wish I could find that great sense of relief. But for me, I keep this weird feeling that I don't belong here. I look around at the people, the place, and what's going on, and I know that in some way is God, playing a role in my life.
yeah,
Um, but and to that end, I think people need to realize that these circumstances, we weren't made to fail. And the opportunity is in front of us. I
yeah,
mean, everything can change instantly. It's all on the path we choose, I think.
yeah. Um, there's like two sets of individuals. There's the ones that go to church with their suitcase and they sit in the front pew and they're waiting on the bus to pick them up and take them off to the Holy Land. And it's like they don't let the windows down so they don't waste heat or air conditioning. They're not hanging out the window saving souls on their way out. They're just out of here, right? I've paid my dues. I'm out of here. And and I'm of the mindset that uh, I have to go forward in court according with God's plan, whatever that may be. I don't know, right? And if that means staying here through whatever it may be
Hmm.
to be a part of what is after, I'm here. I'm here.
Hmm.
You know. Uh, and in the meantime, between now and then, it is help as many people as possible. Um,
I think that's important.
you see hope for survival. The hope is for survival and to help people prepare here on earth, but actually hope is he offers permanent eternity, you know. And whatever time allows and location and wherever it may be, it's I think we all have a calling and some may not want to admit it, but I think we all the more people we help now, Chris, hopefully, especially around us, the fewer hopefully we have to try to help prepare when the time comes.
Yeah, I
Whether
agree.
it's having a community garden, you know what? I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. Everyone needs food. Everyone may not eat radishes or celery, but if I invite 10 people to build a community garden and I don't know who they are, and let's say they're five are Dems and five are Republicans, it gives me a chance to connect and understand them and understand their mindset. I don't have to agree with them. My goal is to help work together to grow food, right? And that
Mhm.
might be, you know what? We're going to throw potatoes at each other over politics, but let's forget that and grow food together because when the time comes, this food is going to matter a whole lot more than what our beliefs are politically.
Yeah, no doubt.
Can we agree we're all Americans, right? Maybe that's your
If we,
common bond.
listen, in an emergency situation, all the party propaganda is going to go away anyway, and everybody will get along like they naturally would anyway.
Yeah, so why can't, I mean, I see people's heads exploding over every week. It's like, man, turn that stuff off. You can't you can't you've got to start at the community level. And I listen to your podcast and I know you're involved at the local level. It's got to start from the ground up.
Yeah,
You're not going to sit and turn your TV on and off 1,000 times a day to change Washington. You've got to go
yeah.
change it in your local community, chamber of commerce,
Indeed.
school board.
School
Get
board, yeah,
involved.
get
Get
involved.
involved, especially school board, man. These little kids' minds, they're just
You said it
soaking
earlier,
it all up.
with the problem with leadership, and people say, why can't we get better candidates? Well, a big part of it is that people aren't running, people aren't stepping up. You have
It's
many
brutal,
races that
man.
go unopposed. It's brutal,
It's
brutal.
why would a decent man or woman who's but it's like I tell folks here, I tell them at HFS and in our community. If you go to a commerce or school board meeting and you're outnumbered 100 to 1, listen and take notes. Retreat and go back with 50. Retreat and go back with 100. Just
Yeah,
because you're outnumbered today, you can run surveillance and collect information or whatever. Retreat and go back with more, right?
yeah. No, it's a great
You
strategy.
can't
More
quit.
people need to do it. They're not doing it though, sadly. Will they do it in the future? Let's hope, right? Let's hope at some point.
I hope things change in your state politically for your sake.
I don't think so. Hey, I was going to say this, but you're talking about your calling to stay there in your community. So I think it is good to kind of have a sense of your purpose, right? A lot of people they really aren't in a position to just get out. They may have extended family,
Yeah,
parents, businesses, whatever obligations. And for me, I'm not kidding. I have an 8-year-old daughter, and my job is to make sure that she lives the best life possible.
yeah,
The minute things get ugly around here, I'm out of here. If I got to carry her out, I'll carry her out.
yeah,
And all that changes everything, right? That
yeah.
changes everything for us in a big way.
But the big decision, Chris, is before you. I mean, you at least had some of that mindset from your time in the Marine Corps, and probably how
Yeah.
you were raised as well, with both your folks being Marines. Um, but part of the problem for a lot of people is that trigger. It is what happens and when. It's like I can't tell you because it's going to be you there at that time that you're going to have
Right.
to decide. We're out of here, and we're
Yes.
now going to Plan B, right?
Yes.
And
And you might not have the opportunity. And I do,
that's true.
like the tornado, you couldn't get out. Luckily, I got in, but you weren't getting out. So you're stuck, and you don't know what kind of situation, right? Whether it be because roads are blocked or whatever the case might be. So, um, yeah, we are prepared to stay as well. So,
Hey, you know
but
those little
I'll
foil
get to know the
mylar
neighbors though.
things,
Yeah,
those little packets that someone was ribbing you about?
yeah,
They would have been great to have dropped your boots off and put on your socks and put them back in your boots.
they would have been great.
Keep your.
It's
It's amazing how they're not long term,
right.
but for that moment.
It's funny. Yeah, I put that video. Well, let me share my little tip. I thought this was the $1 million idea, by the way, with the get home bag, the bag in bag technique. That's genius.
Yeah,
I keep a bag in there.
yeah.
Um, I was expecting a little better reaction than that, Butch. I thought this was like the latest thing on survival, the bag and bag technique. Anyway, um, yeah, I got a lot of criticism on YouTube there for the emergency blankets in there. And I clearly said in the video, look, this is me based on my circumstances wanting to make sure I can get home for 50 miles. I'm not carrying a sleeping bag for that,
Yeah. Here,
you know.
Chris, always remember this. There's 1,001 people out there who go out through the woods a couple times a week carrying their ruck and their sleeping bag. More power to them. You know what? They have their own foxholes and they practice climbing in and out of them. More power to them, right? I'm talking preparedness to the lady across the street and the lady beside of her and the couple next door. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
They're gonna the average is gonna have limited income. They're gonna have limited attention span. What information can I get in their hands to put back some food?
right.
How do I clean water? What
Hmm.
can I grow? And uh, I don't have $80 extra to spend on this nice mylar blanket that I can use over and over and over. But for $10, I can buy 12 of these little ones that could save your life. Those the A lot of the folks who want to criticize are the folks who have the skills, the money, and past experience. They can advance on beyond these things, right? And truthfully, they don't really need help.
Sure.
So all they got to do is sit around and watch other people's and cast judgment instead of saying, "Hey, man, this is a really good thing you're trying to do to wake people up and help them." Right?
Hmm. Mhm.
So get their address and mail them like a dozen of those little mylar blankets for Christmas. Hey, give me your address and I'll send you a free book. And they get this book and it's a box of like little silver mylar blankets. So I thought you were
I
so
find the
cute.
whole thing hilarious. If I could say what I wanted, I'm
Yeah,
thinking to myself, the whole criticism is that if you wrap yourself up in mylar, that the sweat and
yeah,
condensation is going to make you. And I'm thinking there was no point in the video was I talking about sleeping in these things.
yeah, yeah,
uh, and by the way, I think if you are looking for, we do stock wool blankets that we could take if we wanted to. I just don't keep those in that
yeah,
bag, and we keep them in the house for that. And they're very effective. We've had them wet, and a wool blanket is like
yeah.
for $20 you can get a nice wool blanket. Nice way to go.
There is a podcast out there. It's probably 2 years old by now, and I'm wanting to say the site. Uh, it's maybe it's like Survival Dispatch, I think. Anyway, the young guy, a veteran, the young guy went up into the hills of Colorado in the wintertime, and it was like at night, it was like 15 to 20 degrees and windy and maybe some snow. Anyway, he showed how to take the silver mylar and basically he kind of built an angled wall and had a fire. And the mylar was actually, it was far enough it didn't melt, but it was using to shield and push that heat onto him and the other guy. It was brilliant. So actually, when you were talking about that someone was ribbing you about the mylar blankets, I had just watched that video, and I'm thinking, man, if Chris could just pop this out and show it to these individuals. I Man, you hear it all though. I know you do too. You hear it all.
Oh, it's hilarious.
I
I
get
tell you what, if you're trying to get home, a stinking, and you don't have a jacket, a stinking trash bag,
yeah.
you can cut a hole in and put under your shirt. You'd be doggone happy you got it,
Oh
man.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And when you consider, like I said, you think, oh, it's only 6 miles. Well, 6 miles, for even somebody in reasonable shape, that's a good 2 hours walking, even under reasonable conditions. I could crank it out in an hour and 15 minutes. Most people can't do it. You're talking 2 hours of walking. You'd be dead in that 2 hours.
But if you don't
I
have
think,
the right shoes in your vehicle, how many ladies have how many ladies who are professionals keep spare shoes in their vehicle to walk in, right?
well, that sounds
That's
sexist to me, Butch. I'm going to say,
it probably is.
how many, I don't know what you do down there in Alabama. Up here, we wear proper shoes every
Yeah, I mean, it's that okay. So you come out of your building and an event has happened, and you don't realize it till you get to the parking garage, and your car won't start, and your phone won't work, but you don't know why nothing's working. And you go back to your desk and you grab your little gym bag because you work out at lunchtime. And anyway, you start walking down the street, and next thing you know, you're like trying to walk home, and you live 8 miles from work. Uh, how many waterways do you got to cross? How am I going to get across water? Because little communities already like shut down the bridges and said, we don't want anyone from the city coming through our little community. Now what? You can't
Yep.
call home, and you didn't have a pace plan or a route plan, so no one at home's going to come looking for you.
Yep.
So
What's the plan?
that's it, man. If you don't have a plan, I, t- I tell people that, man, and you get that like when you get off of it. I'm tired of hearing it, but man, in the military, what did we ever do that there wasn't some kind of plan for it?
Failure to plan is planning to fail. And I don't understand why, my world, every vehicle would have a little pack in it. Every
Yeah,
home would have a little kit in it. And I know, it was just a couple of years ago, barely 2 years ago, you were preaching to me about the bag, and I was like, "Oh God, Butch!" But let me tell you, one little tornado, and I'm a believer.
It only
And you
takes
realize
one.
how far, Butch, 2 miles. Forget about the six. I was within 2 miles, and I'm telling you, get the bag.
Yeah.
I'm telling you from a guy who's capable of walking Herculean distances, 2 miles, and it could have been a real problem under different circumstances, and you don't know how quick this stuff is going to come up.
Yeah, and you were talking, I asked you, did you sense for yourself any degree of panic? Um, this this is coming from a guy who A does walk long distances, B has past experience in stressful situations. And he's sitting here telling you in this particular event, and it happens all over the world, how fast normal started breaking down to um, panic, and then potentially what would happen after that if you
Let me
didn't.
tell you how
Oh man,
fast. Let me tell you how fast. Okay. I was coming down the freeway. I was able to get off at my exit ramp. Um, a quarter mile ahead, the freeway was blocked and the traffic had begun backing up. So just a few minutes later, and I would have been somewhere way back in some traffic. That's how quickly things were really. And by that time, no emergency services were available. They couldn't get around.
yeah,
Nobody was getting anywhere.
you're on
At
your
that
own.
point, everything shut down. Yep. So it was instantly fast, and to not have any preparation for it, and even for me, by the way, in that situation, it wasn't that I wasn't prepared at all. Physically and mentally, I was prepared. I just didn't have anything to help me along. And yes, it's a big deal, Butch. If you're that late to the game, it's too late at that point. You're not going to be able to do anything.
So imagine a few years ago the ice freeze at night in Atlanta when folks were stranded all night, and then I think there was an event on I-95 last year, and just
Yes.
recently there was another one on the East Coast somewhere, and actually there was a one in Texas. Imagine
So
all
the way
these.
I approach this, I learned this from you and hope for survival. Here in the Northeast, which is what you're talking
Yeah,
about,
prone.
generally speaking, I view our biggest vulnerability as exposure, cold.
Yeah,
With
absolutely.
the second business being if it's in the summertime and you're in your car, water is going to become a problem. But my reason I bring that up, so I keep, for example, an assortment, and only maybe a half dozen hand warmers in my kit.
Yeah.
And if you get wet and you're cold, you might thank God that you have that little damn warmer to stuff under your armpit, you
Oh
know?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
might just do enough to keep you walking and get you home. Now, if you're in Phoenix, you might say a gallon of water might be
yeah.
a wiser thing to carry, right? But yeah, those people stuck on I-95, I think for about 48 hours. At some point, fuel would begin to start to run out, and
Wonder if they
walking
had
out in many
generators.
cases.
Wonder if they were carrying generators to charge their electric car.
No, but I'll tell you this: my wife travels frequently from Philadelphia up to New York City, and also Long Island, New York, and
Yeah,
also Rhode Island. About 5 hours furthest trip. So I also gave her a bag for Christmas. Her and my daughter will travel together. But her bag's a little different
yeah,
because, especially if she's with my daughter, she's not going to walk 50 miles.
yeah,
So her bag is a shelter in place bag.
yeah.
It's heavier on the heat, lighting. I got a bigger battery in there for her to keep her phone charged. I've got some food and a metal canteen cup in there, thinking if they're there a day or two, a
Yeah.
little hot water and a little soup would be wonders. I got heat tabs in there that they can cook with. So it's a different approach, different blankets in that one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they would be covering up in it and staying in the car. So yeah, we just approach it differently for the person and the situation.
Yeah, which is smart. I guess it's debatable among some, but it's like there's a difference between a ready bag, a day bag, a get home bag, and a bug out bag, and
And what you want
it's
to do with it and where you're at.
adjusted
I'll give you
according
another
to your situation.
I'll give you another example. My wife's bag has a flare gun in it that she can use for defense and signaling.
Yeah, for help.
I have no such animal because I don't want to reveal my location generally.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't use that to defend myself. But
Well, it would be like if we took you and we took your wife separately, based on you and your experience, and her experience, and you set out to go 5 miles at night. You know, she may be more likely to walk near the road where there may be other people moving, whereas you may be more apt to stay away from the road and where other people are at and work your way away from people off the road out of sight. And it, again,
well,
it goes to
yes,
experience,
it
training, capability. No fault to anyone, but it's just kind of how it is, you know?
is how it is. Well,
Um,
she would have my daughter, and that's going to be a big limiting factor, and
that's a tough one.
we haven't talked about, like a serious, where she's stuck in Rhode Island and I'm down here. But, generally speaking, I would tell her to wait and I'll come to her kind of thing, I think would be the approach. But
Um,
yeah, it would take a different approach.
yeah, I can get with you and show you very soon. I have a binder here, but like when I'm in Huntsville and I got to get home to East Tennessee, it's 240 miles. That's a
Hmm.
long trek for a old man, right? But I built a plan with 3 routes to get from there to here, 24 days, 10 miles a day, and I use Google Earth at my starting point, and every 10 days I have a star on a map, Google Earth showing my route. Whereas if you're going to go from point A to her, right, and you don't have transportation to get there, it's an estimate from her end as to which way did you go, and if you vanish, marking as you go forward to where was the last point known. You know, just it takes time to build it, a plan.
Yeah.
Um, but it's well, how many times have I used it in the last since I built it? None. But it's an insurance policy. That's all preparedness is, man. It's an insurance policy of self reliance. That's all it is.
Well, you know what? Yeah, it's a peace of mind, really.
Yeah.
And we don't go nuts. We don't have a bunker. We don't
No.
have gas masks. We don't have
No.
5 years worth of food. But we could get out of here pretty quickly. And if we had to hunker down, and if we had to do it very long term, we've made some provisions to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and at least give us a head start on it.
You're ahead of the
And by the way,
majority.
yeah, but by the way, one of the things we keep is paper maps,
Oh
both in the
yeah.
cars and the house.
Yeah.
People forget how quickly that you lose that little app on your phone there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Or an atlas, paper
Yeah.
map. You can anyone out there that if you don't have maps, you can actually write to your state, individual state or states around you, to national parks, I think it was. I wrote letters to them, and every one of them sent me a full fold out map of all the surrounding states between Alabama and East Tennessee,
Nice.
that had all the highways, parks, moonshine roads, no, dirt, dirt roads,
I,
and
I would chart my path on that course.
and
I didn't realize how late it was here, brother.
man,
Speaking of my 8 year old,
yeah,
I
it's
got to get going.
we're an hour and 20 minutes into this thing, man.
It's been a good conversation. I can't
Always,
thank you enough for what you've done for our family.
well,
It's
you
been
too, man.
fantastic.
I appreciate what you're doing. Mostly 5 mornings a week. How can folks come and listen to you?
You could go to ChristopherScottShow.com is the easiest way to get the links there to listen. So thank you for that, Butch.
And they have to appreciate your humor. Okay.
Yeah, not many people do. I'm surprised anybody listens. It's, a couple of people still put up with me.
I always get chuckles from you, man. I sometimes they're needed, But bless you, man, and thanks for your time. And let's not be so long before the next time.
Yeah, indeed, my friend. It was good talking to you. Hopeforsurvival.com. It's the place to go for sure. I thank you for everything you did for us, for our family. I really do.
All right,
It
brother.
was nice.
Thank
It
you,
was
man.
nice. The tornado, the bag, obviously I added, but we were resting easy. And I thought, well, we were prepared for this. What are you going to do? So, anyway, Butch,
Yeah,
thanks. It was great seeing you.
you too, brother. Be blessed, man. Stay safe.
Let's see you, pal. Take care.
Thank you for checking out the Hope for Survival YouTube channel. If you are new to Hope for Survival, you can check out our books at our webpage. Book 1, which is Hope for Survival, Getting You Prepared for Disasters, and Book 2, Hope for Survival, The Mindset, are both available for order on the website. We also offer the Hope for Survival football stick, which is a memory stick set up as a digital filing cabinet with files already loaded on there for you to digitally copy items such as deeds, auto transcript for ownership, wills, living wills, loans, banking information, items that if your home burned down or you had some form of a disaster, you could have all your important papers already digitally filed on this stick. All you do is simply drag the digital file into the appropriate preset folder so that you'll have it in the event of a disaster. You have to flee your home in a hurry, or also if you're away from home and you need critical information that's personal. If you have your memory stick with you, you can put it in your computer and pull that information up wherever you may be. Again, you can find these items to order at our website, https www.hopeforsurvival.com, or you can email me at preparedness101@protonmail.com, and I will try to help you out. Again, thanks for checking out the Hope for Survival YouTube channel. Hope to see you again.